Hello everyone. For our Screen 1 on our template, you have to remember that Screen 1 is always going to be the one that starts when you start the app. So you shouldn't put all your block programming on it because then you don't have very much flexibility. So really for the intro screen or splash screen, we just need to have something in the background, a button to go to whatever the main application is, a game, a quiz, and then a link to more about me. So if people want to learn more about who wrote this app, links to the data web page, whatever it is you want to have on there, you can have that on a separate page. But what about this main one? Let me go ahead and delete these two sections and start fresh. I will need to use the delete button over here. And then looking at this Screen 1. This Screen 1, I've got just save the empty screen. So when you delete stuff like that, it does warn you, did you really want to do that? So for this default screen animation, you can also change that to fade or zoom, just depending on how you want it to show up. Screen orientation means this can be flipped sideways if you leave it unspecified. For some of your apps, you want it to stay in portrait or stay in landscape. This one does not need to be scrollable. We have very little on the screen. And the title of it, I've got it as template. This is where you could put in your name or what this program is. And then you can either turn it off altogether if you want to. Now the background image, I've already got one or two of them loaded up. So I've just got that in the background. But let's make a couple of buttons. Very simple here. Let's go ahead and go to layout. We're going to start off by splitting up the screen. There's several different ways of doing this. We're just going to put two horizontal arrangements here, one below the other. And then this one, we're going to go ahead and start with, I like to center everything inside. Go ahead and make the width fill parent. So this one we can do the same, center and center. And then the width can fill parent. Now we do have this nice background here. So going back, I'm also going to say none on the two of them. And then I got to decide how much each part of this screen gets. So let's just split it 50-50 in this case. If you want to do that, you can just set the height to fill parent on both of them. Height, fill parent, and it splits it up. If you want this to be smaller and that to be bigger, then you can put in a percentage. You don't want to put specific pixels, but if we want, let's say, the height of the first one to be about 3/4 of the screen. Oops, I guess I was on the bottom one. So the height should be 25% of the screen. And then this one up here, we're going to make the height 75%. And now just a couple of buttons. So let's go back to the user interface. We're going to take a button and put it in here. Notice it's centered, and another one down here. So this one's going to be a link to the main program, whatever that may be. So I do like to rename these to what the button is. So we'll call this button main. And this one down here, rename to button about. If you name yours differently, then your block programming is going to be different. So this one right here, let's start off with the text. We're just going to say go to main program. This is what would be changed in your template depending on what you have got going. So I do like to make my rounded. They don't normally show up that way. And then the height, if we've used 75% of this, let's go ahead and use a percent of the screen as well. If we just say 50% for the height and 50% for the width, I want you to see how it takes up half the screen. So maybe the height doesn't need to be quite that much. So let's cut that in half, 25%. So a nice big button there. We can also give it a color. So the default color, let's say for a main button, can be that. But then we can't read black text, so we usually make that white. I do tend to make it bold and a little bit larger. I chose none instead of white. Don't make that mistake. And then this is going to be linked to a screen that we call main on there. Let's do the same for text for button 2. Change that to about. and we will change it to a rounded shape, and we can make the height 50% or the maybe 25% of the screen. It's inside a horizontal, so it really shouldn't have been quite that big. Let's just change it to 10%. See how that looks? And then the width, we can make that 50% of the width. Now, if we wanted this to be offset, this whole horizontal arrangement, we could change the horizontal over there to the right. And sometimes we like to put it at the top so it'll look nice as well. So that can be the way that you saw me do it before. Font bold. We can go ahead and give this another color. I like to make my navigation buttons green a lot of times, but you can have your preference. And again, the font size a little bit larger. So let's just look at what the blocks would do for these. We have these two buttons, and so when the button main is clicked, we want to navigate. So control, we want to open another screen. So we can say open another screen, and then we use the text to just put in the name of the screen. A lot of people get mixed up when you do this. I want you to see it is called main with a capital M, no spaces. So you type in main with a capital M, no spaces. We also have another button called about. So when about button is clicked, then you can say open another screen again. One way to do this is to Control C, Control V, and then just change this to the other one. And in this case, the new About Me screen is going to have no spaces in capital letters. Double check it right there. Okay, so very important that those match up. A lot of people put a space and then it won't work. I do want you to notice that under
students, I need Gianna.
Do want you to notice that there are other things that can happen when buttons are touched. So you've got when buttons have the focus, when you hold down the long click, when you lose the focus, when you touch down, touch up. So that can make your buttons very interactive with the users, and you can do things like change the colors and the fonts and all sorts of stuff. Make the button bigger or smaller. A lot of good ways of giving the user feedback. If I go right here, you can see that clicking on this button and this button is possible, and it'll take you to those screens. We'll just assume that that works. But that's the very simple Screen 1, and this is what I have for the main. This is just where the blocks will go, and you'll change the design depending on what your program is. And then here's my About Me, and next tutorial will show you how to design that.